Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of Swaim Strategies, a consulting firm dedicated to nonprofit fundraising events. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Hello, and welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. We are very excited today to talk about leadership support, leadership coaching, leadership consulting with the expert in the sector. Kendall Clawson is someone that we've had the pleasure of working with for years in lots of different capacities. And she is a nonprofit leader. She has been a leader in the foundation space and is now a leadership coach. And we are so excited to have her here because we feel like this is a time when our nonprofit leaders are going through a lot of changes and a lot of evolution. And we want to talk today about how to support leaders through that. So let me do a quick introduction before we jump into the conversation. Founder of Northwest Leadership Consulting and an advocate and champion of equity in leadership spaces, Kendall Clawson brings a unique perspective shaped by more than 3 decades of success across high-level roles in nonprofit organizations, government, and executive mentorship. Her communication style flowed from a deep understanding of joy and challenges in leadership and her shared experience as a seasoned executive director and board member. She believes that leaders are at their best when they feel cared for and understood in their roles, and that foundation of partnership amongst leaders makes a long-lasting, healthy organization. Blending active listening with her extensive knowledge of how leadership systems can flourish, Kendall serves as a guide, a community builder, and a champion of the power of current and future leaders. She works to reduce feelings of isolation and doubt in leaders so that they can remain focused on their goals and support their mission with confidence. Kendall, you've spent decades in the nonprofit leadership space as an executive director, a board member, an author, a consultant. And as we jump in, the first thing I want to do is I want to know about you as a leader. What is the story that shaped you as a leader and how you show up in the leadership space?
Well, first, I just have to say thank you to both of you for inviting me. We've been talking about this for a really long time, and now I feel very special that I get to be in this, in the elevator club. So thank you for having me, and I really look forward to having this conversation. So I think if I were to describe sort of my leadership journey and why I do the things that I do and how I do the things that I do, it really started after I finished college at UC Santa Cruz. And while I was there, I had a mentor, which I think is probably an origin story for a lot of us. Yeah. But an amazing mentor named Jay Walker. And he was an incredible African-American leader. He was the Associate Dean of Admissions at the university, fabulous Black gay man. And he taught me everything that I needed to know about starting my life professionally. He helped me write my first resume and cover letter, but he also sort of modeled how you can show up in a way that is authentic to yourself. And he and I were friends, and he mentored me. And then one day I got a phone call from him. And he said, I pulled over at this gas station. I feel weird. I don't know what's going on. I'm scared to drive. Can you come get me? And I went and I picked him up, and he was burning up. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to the hospital. So took him to the hospital. They ran a bunch of tests, and he found out at that point, not that he had HIV, but he already had AIDS, and he didn't know it. And it changed everything for me because my plan was to go to law school. I'd been thinking about that my whole life. My parents had planned for that. And suddenly, I found myself in this situation with stuff that I had only heard about on the news. I lived in this little beach town bubble, and now it was at my front step and with somebody that I really cared about. And so I shifted gears, and I started to help and support him as he was navigating this sort of first experience with the disease. And then I really started to get into it. I started to volunteer so that I could be present to him. And throughout the course of the time that he went through this journey, I decided I didn't want to go to law school. A very good nonprofit leader did what they do, which is like, ooh, I see potential in this person. Let me start to put the hook in them. And I got reeled in. And so I shifted into doing nonprofit work and did my first sort of foray into this work, working with Black people with AIDS, because they were getting this message from everywhere that they were bad. And Jay had already experienced being cast out of his own family. And now he's got this illness that also creates that sense for him. And so, you know, all through that, though, he showed me that you could lead even when you're at your worst. He taught me things that has transformed my life and my thinking all the way up until the day that he died. He had me laughing. He had me filled with hope. And that's the thing that I hope to instill in other people that are leading themselves, that no matter how hard it is, there is somebody that cares about you. No matter how hard it is, there is somebody that can advise you, that can hold you up. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
It's interesting. I didn't know that story about you, Kendall, but I see all of it reflected in your leadership journey. Like you are a caring leader, a servant leader. Your commitment in leadership has always been in community, in relationship with others. So I appreciate that he was there for you at that time and that you have continued that journey with his mentorship.
Yeah, everything I do really originated from my parents being those kinds of people. They were in service as well. I learned that early in my life. But then also to have this person that just so reflected the things that I cared about, and also gave me permission to go towards something that neither I nor my parents expected me to do. I'll never forget, just my dad was so mad, like, why do you want to be poor? We worked so hard for you not to do that. But then I think once they saw the passion and the belief, and that I got that instilled in me from somebody that his own life experience helped sort of shape what I valued as a leader.
Yeah. There's a phrase on your website that stopped me when I first read it, which is, they say it's lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah. And I remember you and I were in space together where you were working at a leadership organization, a nonprofit, and I was in the program. And I remember you cultivating that space for a group of us to kind of have that conversation, right? To have, like, in leadership, we don't get to say that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's lonely over here, and I'm holding the bag for all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here, right? And I remember that process of being able to let the shoulders come down, right? And being able to be in community in that I don't know-ness or whateverness, and you facilitating that space. I'm wondering if you can take us back to a moment in your own leadership journey when you felt that impact of being supported. What does that look like?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kristen, because, it's the one thing that I think we don't talk about very much.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to go in, you get all your tools together, you put on your armor, and you go into the fight every single day, 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And then you have to manage a lot of that by yourself. And I'll tell you, the place where it really started for me, I mean, I'm lucky. I feel like I've had a lot of experience in feeling pretty well supported in most of the work that I have done. Even some of the lessons that I've learned from people that weren't that helpful are helpful.
Yeah, right.
I was coaching somebody the other day, and it's like, I want to talk about not just where you learned how awesome it is to be a leader, but who taught you the kinds of things that you shouldn't do.
Right.
And I know I've had that experience where I'm like, I will never do this to someone because this feels awful, how it's happening with me. And when you get into those leadership spaces, you don't always have a place to put it or to somebody that you can say it to. So I'll go back to Q Center, which you all are familiar with. I was the first executive director. It was very much a startup. I remember arriving on my first day, coming from the East Coast, wearing a suit and heels and pearls, and I was mopping and sweeping a floor.
Yeah.
And quickly realized this is not what I'm wearing to this job when I have to do these kinds of things. But at the same time, I'm having to manage donors and having to manage the space that we're in. And so we had this moment where when domestic partnership was going away and actually, we were on the verge of gay marriage, but domestic partnership was sort of getting boxed up. And then there was this judge who put it on hold for us, and everybody got really mad. And we gathered this whole group together, and everybody that had any power called everybody that they knew. We had the governor there, we had mayors there to talk about our rights in this space. And we realized this place, is ours, but it's not. We need our own place. And I really realized it when we were having a candlelight vigil, and I thought, I'm going to get in trouble with the fire department because this place is packed, and we're about to be like, and light your candles, and I'm like, no.
I was at that vigil, and I had the same impression. I was like, oh no.
Totally. So we found ourselves in a situation where we were able to move to start thinking about getting into a bigger place. And when we finally found this place on Mississippi, it timed out perfectly because it was like days before Pride. And it's like, well, the whole family's coming. So let's start asking for help. And that's all it took. We went to everybody's party. We had our table at the waterfront. And so this was now not just about me sweeping floors by myself and managing donors and doing all that stuff. The entire community came together as if this is our spot. And so we're all in. And I'll never forget the feeling that we had. And there were a handful of us that were at the table at that moment, that this person came up and dropped this bag of quarters onto our table. And I was like, what's this about? And, they came to all of our events. They participated in tons of our programs. They lived on disability and didn't have a lot. And said to us, I want to participate in getting money for our new home. I don't have a lot. I don't really have that much money to give, but I'm going to give you my laundry money for the next 2 weeks. This is my laundry money in this bag, and I will wash my clothes in the sink. And we all cried. Because it was that moment where you realized all these times where I'm like, oh my God, is this possible? This is killing me. I haven't been home. I'm so tired. But then you realize I'm not by myself in here. This is our thing. This is us coming together. And then when we finally got a building that we wanted, I was taking the trash out one day, and this guy comes up to me and he says, hey, is the director here? And I was like, that's me. And he said, oh, so I noticed that you all are doing a bunch of stuff to the building. I was like, yeah, we just moved in, and, the community's all coming together. They're painting and pulling up old carpet. It's really exciting. And he said, well, I'd love to help. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, I own a painting company. And so I'd love to paint your building. I'm like, oh, dude, I'd love that, but we don't have money for that yet. Like we're in here literally asking everybody to come roll up their sleeves. I can't pay you for that. And he's like, I don't want you to pay me for it. It's like, what's the catch?
Yeah.
He said, so last year, my son came out to me and I didn't handle it well. I was more afraid than I was judgmental, but it came off as judgmental. He received it that way, and I hurt him. And I haven't been able to forgive myself for that yet. And so he told me that he comes here and that this place has brought him a sense of community that he hasn't had since he came out. And so I'm here to say that I want to paint your building because I owe him that. If this is a place that has made his life better, then I want to help this place help him be better. And that again was a moment where it's like, God, people are great.
Yeah.
They really
Yeah.
are. And I never really felt like, the burden was just mine. It was ours. It was a we. And it was really my first sort of foray into collaborative leadership, really. It was all of us making decisions about what we wanted and what we needed for ourselves. And I just had to get out of the way of that and let people show up for me.
Yeah.
Letting people show up. That's a
It-
lesson.
Yes, I hear that strongly. Also, what I hear strongly that is the piece I take away is that moment to let the armor down, too, right?
Yeah,
Like
completely.
that understanding your baseline of people are good, people are great, right?
Yeah.
That ultimately, if that's what we're all striving to live in a world together as, that there
Yeah.
are those moments where you could armor up,
Yeah.
but also there are those moments where you can armor down, and that's what creates the
Collaborative
space
leadership.
and the,
Yeah.
the ability for that good to penetrate, right?
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
received.
Well,
Yeah.
I
It's
think
hard.
It's so
Oh, I'm sorry.
hard. It
Yeah.
is.
It
It
is.
is.
It's hard. We're already trained to not do that.
Right.
Don't show weakness, like, oh my gosh, you have to be strong. And I think for me, particularly culturally and on lots of levels,
Yeah.
that was my messaging. There's no crying in baseball.
Yeah.
Like the bar is 10 times higher for you. So there's no, it gets all the way down to the nitty gritty. My dad telling me one time, you can't be upset about that. We survived slavery. You'll be fine.
you're not allowed.
And that's the headspace that I was
Yeah.
operating out of
Yeah.
for a long time. So it's like I'm carrying the hopes and dreams of people who are in this space that need something. And I don't have the capacity to allow myself to feel vulnerable
Yeah.
when it's the exact opposite. That vulnerability actually opens the door to people who can help you.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that armor is something that is like in this time, in this modern era that we're living in, the armor is getting layered and layered and layered because we're getting just bombarded with threat, right?
Yeah.
From all different directions
Yeah.
of like, in the nonprofit space, I think often like funding loss or, program changes or a need or a requirement to move away from
Right.
mission-centered language or DEI language. And so I think I'm seeing a lot of layers being added. I'm seeing a lot of leaders like add that layer of, okay, I'm just going to protect myself and protect my team. And this is oftentimes our work is personal. So
Yes.
in that, you're now consulting with so many different leaders in so many different spaces. What do you see the need is? Like, what do you see the biggest need is for leaders right now?
This is as simple as it comes. I think leaders need to be acknowledged for what they actually do for organizations, for their people, for their communities. I mean, I think a lot of people have no idea what goes into this. They think that you just show up at events and you say fancy things or, you're providing these services, but they don't actually know what you have to do to make all these things happen. And so, I think one of the biggest ways that we can shift that is to actually build in as a part of our practice that we have to tend to people who are doing this, not because they're incapable or they're incompetent, but that they actually need to feel cared for.
Yeah.
I've probably spent the last 20 plus years of my career and I'm now building my business around the fact that we need to sustain leaders. We are, as you talked about before, our armor is up because it's not just about showing up for work anymore, it's defending.
Yeah.
And people who have never had to defend before are having to do that. There have been folks who have worked in nonprofit spaces where the money comes because they're working with a community that really resonates with a broad swath of the community, whereas others have had to work in spaces where they feel like no one cares about this community that
Yeah.
I'm representing, and it's extra hard. But now all of us are facing funding cuts. All of us are facing people losing their sense of humanity around the things that people require just to live. And so then nonprofits have sort of embedded into their systems and their cultures that you have to give every ounce of yourself, every minute of the day has to go into this job. And so much so that you start believing that if I don't do it, no one will.
Mm-hmm.
Or even worse, that if I can't do it, then I failed.
Yeah.
And, you know, this failure is massive, I think, for those leaders, particularly those that are in the helping fields, because, you know, then suddenly you're walking around like the success of every child's education is on my shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Someone
then we
is
wear
going to be
that.
housed or not housed because of me.
Right.
You know, and that's, first of all, it's not real. And that is like messaging that I have to give myself all the time.
Yeah.
Pause, Kendall, that's not real. That's
Yeah.
not. You're not in this by yourself. Life and death decisions are happening every single day, but it is not just your responsibility to do that. So, you know, I feel like even when I'm listing off the kinds of things that people are responsible for, their teams, their donor bases, their board, you know, financing and fundraising and reporting, all these things are exhausting, and that's happening every single day. And it's easy to start believing that everybody needs something from you, but no one is asking, what do you need to actually keep doing all of this?
Yeah.
So, you know, I feel like with all the things that are going on in the world, I think leaders need to feel cared for. They need to feel tended to. They need to feel appreciated. I mean, we really owe them that.
Yeah.
They're doing so much magical work.
Yeah. And I'm sort of on the cusp of a light bulb moment, but I'm thinking about what we put on leaders in terms of how we're defining leadership generally and specifically for them. Like, I think, especially when we look at hierarchy, which is problematic in so many ways, when folks look at their leader, it's like, well, they're the boss, they're the leader because they want to boss, or whatever, you know, whatever that definition of that power dynamic is. Instead of what is it in them that compels them to put themselves into that space, sort of into that perfect target point for so many things coming from so many different directions. And I think you couple that with how that's defined in nonprofit sectors, where we get really, really good about talking about the organizational mission, but we don't talk about the person inside the leader, right? We talk about the function, but not the person. And how, and then that translates to me in that role, like I'm just defined as the boss and I don't have an imagination about what that is outside of that. And I had to leave and check who I was at the door to be here. How do you help a leader separate who they are from what their organization does? To your point of, you know, am I the reason why people won't get housed today? And why does that distinction matter so much right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a massive conversation that needs to be had on a regular basis, because you've touched on a couple things, Kristen. I mean, this notion of power is in direct conflict with what a lot of people are doing in nonprofit, and yet we're still sort of replicating other sectors and how they lead and how they manage. And so then you're having to deal with people's lives, but at the same time orchestrate things in a way that doesn't account for those kinds of structures that we're trying to mirror. And you know, it's that thing that I think all of us have done, where we start to believe that we are the organization. And so then when people are asking, you know, how are things going, you launch into the resume or into the organizational notes. You know, I worked with a cohort of leaders last year, and kind of took some time first to meet one-on-one with everybody before inviting them to participate in this cohort. And, I sat down with them and said, like, hey, let's meet for coffee. I'm gonna be in your town. Let's meet for coffee. And immediately it's like, oh my God, what happened? What did I do? Like,
What's wrong?
Right.
What's wrong, right? And so it was interesting because I would always start with, so, how are you? And I would get usually like a 5 to 10 minute litany of everything that was going on in the organization. I was also paying attention to the fact that it wasn't just what was going on in the organization, but it was the extra effort to put the high gloss on things.
Yep.
Yeah.
So everything's great. It's fine. We're working really hard. There's all these things that are happening. And this is the organization. And I would let them go until they were done. And then I would just pause for a second and say, I appreciate the update on the organization. But my question was, how are you? Mm-hmm. Are you okay? And I'm going to tell you, 8 of them, there were 12, 8 of them teared up or cried in that moment, because it was stark how obvious that was, that they don't know who they are sometimes in that. I think you see that with parents too, where it's like, have I lost who I am as a person, or am I just the mother or father or parent of this child? And the child's universe is who we are collectively.
Yeah.
And then spent that time really asking, how are you doing? How are you coping? Do you feel like you have what you need? Do you have people with you? So that question is literally about you and not about the organization. And so I think it is giving ourselves permission to be people who are bringing interesting things. When you go home, if you're not too tired, when you go home and you're hanging with your friends, are you hanging with your friends and, talking about the details on your P&L? No, you're kicking it. You're doing stuff. You're going bowling. You're going to the movies. You're going to dinner. You're going to the park. You're working out. You're doing all these things that make up who you are as a person. Those parts of you are the critical things that make you a very well-adjusted, interesting, insightful leader, because you're bringing forks and knives and shrimp knives and a butter knife and like all kinds of different tools to the conversation. And you can't let the obligation of the job take over to a point where you don't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. You're going to get resentful for sure. Mm-hmm. And it is the quick path to burnout.
Yeah.
Well, and often that is the badge of honor. We think someone's a good leader when they have erased themselves personally from the 100%. Equation. It's like, how are you? They answer about the organization. It's like, how are you? They're like, I'm actually dead inside because I don't have anything apart from what is required or determined for me over here.
That's right. And then what's our response? Congratulations on being dead inside? No, right? Yeah. I mean, I think that is a really important part of this conversation, is that we can't keep celebrating how, it's like when someone says, how's it going? Busy. That's our pat answer now.
It
Just
is.
Busy.
Yeah.
Well, we're all busy. So what else? How else? Yeah. Are you actually okay? And this is the most important part. How are you, and how can I help? This is the part. How can I help? Because we don't know how to ask for that anymore either.
Yeah. And so I think as a leadership coach and consultant, I think that you've tapped on, if someone was just spending time with a leader like you are, acknowledging them for their leadership and asking that question, how are you? And second, how can I help? The ability for people to grow in their leadership and to grow in their impact would be tremendous. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because the high gloss that you were talking about, like creating the story of this is what we're doing, this is our mission, this is our focus, this is our impact, is so much of what we've been taught is the need for reporting to philanthropy, reporting to foundations, reporting to our corporate partners. But the humanness gets lost in that. You speak of a story that I actually want to ask you to share, because you've used this a lot in leadership environments I've been in, but we're often thinking of the leader as leading from the front. And we're often thinking of that like high gloss, right? Like what is it that we create as a leader, as our narrative? But you have a wolf pack scenario that I want you to share that story a little bit, because I feel like it's a very different way to look at leadership.
Yeah. It's shifting the way in which we perceive leadership, visibility, and power. And you'll see this in other cultures too. I remember hearing about how, the sort of colonialized version of a totem pole. You don't want to be at the bottom of the totem pole. In actuality, the person that's at the bottom of the totem pole is the strongest,
Right. Yep.
Because they can hold up everybody else. And you can see how we have shifted things to fit a different kind of narrative. And the wolf pack, is one of those things where, if you think about the way in which packs can travel, they put their young, the children, the elders, and the sick or the unwell in front. And then the young, strong, fast wolves will be on the sides, where they can move then forward and back and off to the sides. And if you've got your babies and your young and your elders and your and those that are contending with sickness or aren't well, they are determining the pace. You never lose them. You're not, it's not the kind of thing that we're used to. Like, if you're dragging the team down, then you got to go. You're not helping us. Instead, it is, if we are at your pace, then we are able to stay together. Your young whippersnappers get to run about and keep their eyes open, and they're prepared that if a predator comes towards you, that then they are activated quickly because they have the ability to do that. But ultimately, when it comes to the leader or the alpha works from the back. Why? Because you can see everything from there. You can't see things from every vantage point if you're in the front. And that's the irony of this, that we have sort of set this up where there is a sense of power that comes from being in the front of a room, when you're actually missing a lot, and that the perception of the people who are walking with you then gets altered, because guess what? All they're seeing is your back. They don't see this. They don't see, when you have moments where you're like, I'm worried, they don't see that. They see you going this direction, and all you see is what's here. You don't have the power of lessons learned. You don't have power of the elder that is now walking behind you, who has seen this path before, and you're about to go down that path, and you're not listening because you're so busy charging forward that that elder could be like, ooh, girl, don't go there. In the immortal words of Whoopi Goldberg from the fabulous movie Ghost, you in danger, girl. I mean, you need that sometimes. You need your people to be able to say that. And so shifting where you are leading from the back also helps you. It supports you, because it allows for, when we talked earlier, Kristen, about the armor and dropping that, it allows you to also be vulnerable and call out to the young wolves to handle something that you can't chase in every direction.
Right.
You can't. And so when we're saying, I've got to do it all or no one else will do it, then you're running off in this direction and something happens to one of the baby wolves while you're gone, because you can't do everything.
Yep.
It also allows you to be in community with the teams that you're working with, that you are accountable to the work and you are accountable to each other. They can advise you, and most importantly, they can protect you. So you're, again, never alone in this situation. You've got your pack. And the more you can build on that and building that trust, and nothing works better than showing a little vulnerability to people, because then it's like, oh, you know how they show in magazines, oh, celebrities, they're just like us.
Right.
Well, same with leaders.
Yeah.
They're just like us.
She
They're just
checks
trying
the
to
mail
get
like
through.
everyone else.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a little bit of a different form of leadership too, but also a different picture of leadership. When we think of those like hierarchical structures, you immediately think of like a pyramid structure where the leader sits on top. That's lonely. But when the leader is leading from the back, it feels much more community oriented, much more collaborative. But I think it requires permission.
Yeah.
And so we're going to take a short break. But when we come back, I want to talk about permission to lead or permission to change how you lead too. So we'll be right back with Kendall Clawson.
Ready to take your fundraising to the next level? Need to get unstuck in your event planning? Now's your chance to connect directly with the experts behind the Fundraising Elevator. Book a one-on-one consulting session with Sam for strategic planning and fundraising strategy, with Kristen for your programming and storytelling, or Mary for your registration and data tools. They're here to provide you personalized answers to all your event questions. Don't wait. Raise more at your next fundraising event. Book your session today at swaimstrategies.com. You can also find the link in our show notes.
Welcome back. We are here with the brilliant Kendall Clawson. I have been a fan for a very long time, and we're talking about leadership and how we can all work together to change leadership. It's interesting, before the break, Kendall, you were talking about the cohort of leaders that you were meeting with one-on-one. And your follow-up question to how are you was how can I help? And that question still scares the shit out of me when people ask me that, because I am not practiced to be vulnerable enough in a way to answer that in the way that I know I want to. There's a need answer, right? And then there's the way that I'm like kind of screaming inside to say.
Right.
And there's that hook. And so when we are talking about that wolf pack theory, and in your work you focus on healthy boundaries and helping leaders reprioritize in ways that fuel them, I feel like this is all connected to get to that place of where we're actually able to ask for what we need and offer that to other people. Nonprofit culture has a really long history of martyrdom.
Yes, it does.
Do more with less, lead through sacrifice. You know, when you were talking about numbers of hours a week, I just clocked before you started at 40 and went up from there.
40,
right?
50, 60, 70, 80.
That's what the culture of this sector has looked like. What does it look like when a leader gives themselves permission to lead differently?
Yeah. You know, I think this is one of those things that, you know, we can sometimes treat like, you know, on Survivor, you're told you can bring like one luxury item. Mm-hmm. It's never this. It's never the opportunity to say, I need to pause, rest, recalibrate, reframe. It's always go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And if you think about sort of the cycle of nonprofit leadership in particular, the average nonprofit leader lasts for between 3 and 4 years in their role.
Oof.
Right? That's short. And but you think about the evolution of that cycle. So you go and, you know, you have this lovely courtship and the board goes out and whispers a bunch of sweet nothings to a few candidates to say, oh my God, I've got the most amazing house. You should come live with us. It's incredible. You know, this is what we're all about. This is how we live. Oh, you like that too? You're aligned with that? This is the work that you've been doing your whole life. Great. Come move in with us. And then, you know, the board is like, I have a whole other job. So you're here. Great. I'll see you later. I'm going to go do my other job. And now you're going to be standing in the living room, you know, looking at some children that you just adopted that have been there for however long. Half of them are excited to see you because they couldn't stand their ex-mother that just left. And the other half are resentful because they didn't ask for a new mama, but here you are. And so you're navigating your new team and how they feel and what they're excited about and what they need. And you're also now responsible for reimagining and re-envisioning based on what you said that you could do in those interviews. And you get there, and then reality starts to kick in that you need to learn this place, learn these people, learn the culture, keep the money coming in, keep the process moving, and come up with magical new things for people to do all at the same time. But realizing that, oh, the person that was here before left screaming from the room, and I need to spend the first 6 months doing cleanup on aisle 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to start thinking about, what it is that you want to do. And if all of those things are colliding at the same time, you can guess that that person is spending the first year of their lives fixing things
Yep.
and not getting into the thing that got them psyched about being there in the first place. And then they're finding that they're having to do it by themselves because, again, the board is like, hey, this is your job. I'm just here to come do your monthly meetings. And your team is looking at you as you're taking down the curtains that they, sat with their now past grandma who hand sewed those curtains and hung them with you on Christmas Eve, and you're tearing them down because they've got moth holes and they're, not letting light in. All of those things then keep you from going towards the thing that you signed up for. By year 2, if those things haven't been addressed, that person is thinking about cheating on you. They're already thinking about, where else might I go? Because this is not for me. This is not what I thought it was going to be. This is harder than it was. And I'm in here by myself trying to do it. Even if you manage to get your team pulled together around you, the work is still so huge. So then you start to believe that thing that we're talking about with martyrdom that says, I have to do every single thing in here or we're all going to die.
Yep.
And then by year 2.5, if that hasn't been managed, that person is arriving by year 3 or year 4 at max saying, I'm leaving. And now the board is shocked. They have no idea because they haven't been present to realize that there's been a little smoke from an ember that is now caught on fire and the house is burning, and that person is not holding the hose for you because they have not felt tended to.
Yep.
The part where we are taking on all of the responsibility and all of the accountability is not sustainable. I'm going to say that again. The part where we're taking on all of the accountability and all of the responsibility is not sustainable. And you are surrounded by people with incredible insight, with great ideas, and it should become a part of your practice. It should become a part of your organizational DNA to check in with yourself on a regular basis and check in with the people that you have surrounded yourself with, to get a reality check, to show that you need help, to ask for help, and worry about the consequences of asking for help after that. Because in all likelihood, they won't come. And I have been the mean person at times in a coaching relationship where I have said to someone, darling, I do want you to know that while you believe that you are the only person that could do this job, that you're the only person that is capable of running this organization, that if someone on your board or your board in its entirety decides, actually, you're not for us, we don't really think that you're as aligned as we thought you were when we were courting. And so now I think we want you to go. That the shoe can easily be on the other foot, that those folks
Right.
can decide, actually, no, there is somebody else that could do this job. And we sell ourselves short because we believe that that's what this is about, that we're the only ones. And like that, you can be the person that is no longer needed or welcomed at that organization. And the organization goes on without you. Even if you decide you're going, those folks have to scramble again and figure out what they're going to do to replace you. So you can choose whether you want to go that route where you're going to be looking for another job, or your board is going to be looking for another you, or you can start to make it a part of your practice to really say, we're going to pause, we're going to rest, we're going to recalibrate, and we're going to reframe what it is that we need to do this work. That is what makes for long-term sustainability. These short-term solutions, these Band-Aids, they don't stick after a while. You're going to get run underwater, you're getting hosed down, you're getting all kinds of stuff. The Band-Aids after a while don't stick. They just don't. You have to change the frame of the way in which you're thinking about this.
Yeah.
And
Well-
it's not just about you.
Well, and you use such a great verb, the idea of tend.
Yeah.
And within organizations, tending is the internal piece as well.
Yeah,
and I
right.
think often in mission-driven organizations, it's like, yeah, but that's time away from this, and this, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but none of that happens if people aren't tended to.
It'll still be there, I promise you.
Yes,
When
the work.
You
the
take
work.
a couple days off. It'll
Right.
still be there.
They'll
It's
still be
fine.
there.
Right.
So I want to combine two thoughts here, because you are talking about the board ED relationship, but also we have a lot of board members that listen to the show. I'm curious what you would say to them about what this could look like. Like, what is the ideal scenario for organizations to be thinking about the board and the leader of the organization in partnership? Because I think you do that really well. Like, I have seen you in organizations build teams for your leadership style around you that are systems that move mountains. And so I'm curious about, like, how do we move into a place where we're thinking about that relationship and what that relationship could mobilize for organizations?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've learned this, and frankly, I continue to learn this because I evolve as a person. The people that I'm with evolve. I'm imagining a scenario where, if what I just said, which is you're making this part of your practice to do this sort of reevaluation, reframing, that you're able to put your insights together. It starts with know thyself. And as much as you can, because trust me, I mean, I make mistakes. I do all kinds of nutty things that don't make sense. But, I know myself enough to know when something works for me or doesn't, when I feel comfortable and when I don't. And so I need to be with people who get that and aren't shocked by it.
Yeah.
For some people, I am definitely an acquired taste. For others, I am like cilantro. You love it. You can't imagine a taco without it. And for others, it's like, ugh, you're like soap in my mouth. I hate it. But it is taking that time to really understand who you are and what you require to do the work that you're doing. And so if you're able to start with know thyself and then do this practice of paying attention to where you're sitting with the work, what you need, how you're reevaluating. And then this is the magical, mystical part to me. Imagine what it would be like if that's how you saw your board. If that's how you were working with your board, that they know you, that they know that you might not be full throttle this week because you're managing something with your kids or you're dealing with an aging parent at the same time. And so maybe they can actually step in and make those handful of donor calls that you need to make by the end of the week to relieve some of the pressure. The only reason why they can step into that is because they know you. They're in community with you. They're in relationship with you. They know if you have an amazing idea for a fundraiser, they know how that's going to go because at their table with you. It's not news. It's not something that you're only finding out snippets of when you attend the board meeting once a month. And to me, I think this is how we can significantly change the experience of EDs and their boards.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just a volunteer job that now I'm about to say a bunch of things that are going to be controversial,
Bring it.
yet brave.
Bring the
Let's
controversial.
go. Be brave. Kendall, be brave.
Right? I mean, so this is where you can't just show up and see this as a volunteer job that you parachute into once a month, and you look at the P&L and you vote yay and nay on a bunch of things. Maybe you've read it, maybe you haven't because you're busy too. It's recognizing that the ED that's running this organization is carrying a lot of things that they're not telling you. They're not. They don't want to alarm you. They don't want to freak you out. And ultimately you're responsible for the vision and the mission of the organization. And so they actually need that in the form of your best thinking, your time, and this is the unspoken part, it's your care. I have a program for EDs and their boards that's called the Foundational Five. So it works with bringing the most critical members of a team together, of an organization. So it's your ED, your board chair, your vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. These are the sort of two pillars that sit in the middle of the bridge that then has, a pillar on each end. You all traverse each side of that bridge, the ED with the team, the board, leadership and executive committee with the rest of the board. And we bring them together in ways in which, you all have experienced in opportunities for them to actually get to know each other.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just like, what do you do in your job? What is my role as an ED? What is your role as a board member? But to really know each other, to build close, trusting relationships, lasting relationships where, like I said before, when something's up because you're in relationship with them. You get to know each other for real. You talk about things like, what do you believe in? What drives you around this work? What do you need to feel comfortable in the role that you have? And how should we collectively be showing up for our teams? And I think that board leads have an opportunity then to impart a shared message of collaborative leadership with the other parts and components of their team, because that reduces that isolation that we're talking about, that loneliness at the top, where you're then actually not in an adversarial relationship with your board, or resentful because they're not providing or tending to you, or they don't know what you're actually contending with. And so when you find yourself in a problem, they don't know how to show up for you. And so I think it's really shifting our thinking towards, we need, especially in these times, we need to show up for one another as a collective body in order to do these incredible things that people are working on. So I think that relationship has to shift. I know I've done it where it's like, I've tried to handpick people that will stay out of my hair. We've all done it. I'm going to say, this is where I'm going to get vulnerable. I was brave and now I'm vulnerable. It's like, I've done that for a lot of my career. What I've learned is, if I am not in a trusting relationship with someone, it's like that wolf pack. They're at my back. And can I trust them in that moment? So it doesn't always behoove you to pick someone just because they'll stay out of your hair. That person needs to know you.
Well, and I think too, just organizationally within the sector, even how governance is set up with a board and with staff. And it's like, we hear the folks we work with in our capacity on the development side, prepping, quote unquote, for their board meeting. And you can feel the tension go up, and there's this. And so what that makes clear to me is that there's not that space of relationship where it's like, I'm just going to be real. Here's what's up. Here's where we are. What can we all do collectively together? There's like, embedded in the system is a division between the two. That's that gap that we're always trying to like run and jump over and hope we get there, or they just kind of stand and watch us fall into the gap, And so there's that. This is going to make some people's heads hurt a lot, because we are asking them to step outside of that structure that they've inherited. And that there could be a world in which that structure works differently and looks differently. And part of that, though, is once you have that, there are times during leadership change where organizations really crumble.
Yeah.
And what are plans that a nonprofit should be considering before a long key staff transition so that that doesn't happen? When we're thinking about sort of relationships and this alchemy and what we're creating, that seems like that's a path toward a better transition. And so I'm wondering how to lift up out of that ideas for folks to start thinking about and putting in place, because often that's the fire that can get people moving in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is where this is an expectation of most of us, is that you're organized and that you are communicating. And being organized isn't just in the moment. It is long-term stuff. I just worked on a leadership transition over the fall and through the early winter. And they made a decision a few months before they asked for my help and support in this process, that they didn't want to be crazy. They knew this was a good fortune. They got the heads up, like, I've been here 10 years and I'm ready to do something different. And so I'm letting you know that I'm not mad. I'm not leaving because I hate this job. I'm just ready to try something different. And it gave them the opportunity to start thinking in a planful way about what it is that they wanted to see in the future for themselves. And even if it's happening in crisis, it goes back to pause and catch your breath and start to recalibrate. So communication is really critical. This is an opportunity for change, especially if you're dealing with a founder or a longtime leader is leaving. That's a moment to go, okay, we've had this person for 10 years. What are some of the things that we've always wanted to do?
Yeah.
But this wasn't necessarily their style. Or if they were to tell us, if we were to interview them, the person that's leaving, what would we ask them in terms of, if you had all of the barriers taken down, what would be your dream situation? What would you love to have done while you were here, but you just didn't get to it? And how mission critical is that? Would that shift things for us? Also, it's just little things like finding ways to get things done that you haven't done before, like updating your operational and your organizational manual so that when the new person comes in, they have like a red book, basically, of everything that you need to have to run this organization. The things that I'm describing right now are the things that should be happening all the time, but because we've set up, as we've talked about, this crazy culture that says go, 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 go at all times, and organizing yourselves and talking about what it is that you want and need is not a priority because we just don't have capacity for that. And then you find yourself in this moment of transition without the things that you need to court and get the next really great ED that is perfectly aligned with you. You're still in a scramble. And I really encourage opportunities to connect the former ED with the incoming.
Interesting,
Even if it's just through, I asked this person that I was working with to treat it like you're the former president on your last day and you're putting the letter in the Resolute desk. What would you say to this person that's just you to them, ED to ED, that says, I am your peer, I am your colleague, and here's what you need to know, and burn after reading, so that you're walking in the door with that kind of awareness and knowledge. And you think about too, just ways in which you can start to prepare for that. I used to meet with a group of leaders who were doing similar work to me, and we would go off into the suburbs somewhere where nobody would know us, and we would have real conversations about what was happening, where we'd made commitments to each other that we would never ever speak of this. It was Fight Club, basically.
Yeah.
And we would never speak of what was said in there, but we could have those serious conversations about the people who would have a few cocktails at the event and raise their paddle and then never pay, and that they made a habit of it. So it was like, don't book this person until you see the check, because you add that into what you made, and now you're going to have to come down $10,000 because you're never going to get that check. You can't say that. publicly, that's terrible. That will get you in all kinds of trouble. But it was super helpful to have
Yeah.
this group of peers that I could rely on. So that's also a way in which you can manage transitions where you've got colleagues who can inform the process.
Yeah. Well, I have this image in my head right now of the infinity symbol, and there's like that idea of energy flow being
Right.
continuous, and then the executive director is sitting in the middle as that connection point. And a good, solid organization has those key elements in place so that that leader can move either with the flow or out of the flow and not change.
Yep.
And where we've seen that collapse happen is when they leave, the connection stops, right? And it creates a pause for the organization and a crumble of the organization. But the Fight Club analogy is one that we share a lot because I think it's really powerful to think of who are you in relationship with that maybe isn't a public conversation, but is a supportive private conversation to lift each other up and keep that workload distributed, keep the mission centered where the individual can live outside of the mission and the mission still is something that everyone holds and the individual leader can be vulnerable and themselves and make choices about staying, going because they're in relationship to an organization.
It's a great opportunity for your board to also say, I see how magical you are, and I would be doing you a disservice if I asked you to stay here for the rest of your life. There are other things that you could and should be doing. How can I help you continue to grow? This isn't all the bad stuff about how hard it is to run an organization. It's also the good stuff. There are incredible people that I feel like I am accountable to you being better than just this job that you have right now. You're ready for something else. How can I help?
Everyone needs Kendall Clawson on their board. I love that
I have boundaries.
I love that you're doing the Foundational 5 program. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to ask you to step into the fundraising elevator and then give folks some information about how they too could do a Foundational 5 program. So we'll be right back.
Change. It doesn't happen on its own. It happens on purpose. Thanks to nonprofits that believe a brighter future is not just possible, but needed and deserved. And that connect people to causes and turn moments of generosity into movements. That's why Bloomerang is built for purpose. To raise the bar on what's possible and help every act of giving lead to more. Because when the bottom line is a better world, no goal is too lofty. Bloomerang, built for purpose.
Welcome back. We are here with Kendall Clawson talking about brave, vulnerable leadership and what it could look like for all of us. Yay. Kendall, I would love to invite you into the fundraising elevator where we're all headed up. What is that parting tip, those words of wisdom you would leave for our nonprofit superheroes out there when they look at leadership and can kind of feel the bile in the back of their throat a little bit?
Well, first, you're amazing. You really are. There are people in the world who are incapable of pulling off the things that you're pulling off every single day. This is like the childbirth of leadership sometimes. It is what your mind and your body is capable of doing for others is incredible. So I start there because we need to hear that we're awesome. We do. And don't forget about what brought you here in the first place. So when I think back on the moment when my dear, dear friend got news that was terrible, it changed the trajectory of my life. I could be sitting somewhere, being a lawyer, bored in a library or something. But instead, I can look back on my life, and if I retired today, I could look back on my life and feel like even when I was messy and didn't pull things off or, was spectacular in that moment, I could end my career right now knowing that I did something that made a difference. And that's what's happening with you every single day. Ask for help. Check in with your people and let them hold you. It's okay to be held, and it's okay to expect to be tended to. There is nothing wrong with you for needing someone to say, are you okay? That is not an outrageous question. And I am just so proud of every person that is willing to stick their neck out in leadership around things that are making people's lives better every single day. pulling things off with little to nothing, MacGyvering their way through this stuff. And I'm just really proud of you for doing everything that you're doing in the world right now. When I am long gone, your footprints will be here.
So if someone wants to hear from you because they need reassurance, they need to hear how amazing they are, they need to reach out and ask for help, how do they find you and work with you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn under Kendall Clawson, and then come to my website. It's www.northwest, so nwleadershipconsulting.com. So
nwleadershipconsulting.com.
I know it's long, but and you can read all about what we have to offer for services, and then there's an easy little form for you to fill out where you can tell me what you need, and I will reach out to you and begin to tend.
Love it.
I hope every leader clicks through to your website and says, I need to know I'm amazing. And I just need some time with Kendall Clawson. We absolutely love you. We feel so lucky we get to work with you. You are definitely one of those mentors for me that I just feel so supported by and uplifted by. And I am so appreciative that you joined us on the podcast today.
Thank you both so much. And the feeling is mutual. If everybody really wants to know the truth, the two people that are sitting here are part of that team that I have put together that advise me on a regular basis, including the moment that I made the decision to build this business. So surround yourself with good people like Kristen and Sam, and keep supporting their work. They're doing incredible things too.
Thanks, Kendall. We
Thank
appreciate
you, Kendall.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced by Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV department. The program is produced and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson and Heidi Christensen. Video production by John Collier. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group. And voiceover by Josh Boykin.
Hey y'all, it's Kristen. Before we leave, I want to ask for your help to make the podcast grow. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please like, follow, and subscribe to the Fundraising Elevator. And if you're getting a lot out of the show, share it with a friend. Leave us a review. These things help make sure that the podcast continues heading up. Thanks so much for being here and tuning in.
Are you ready to engage supporters and grow your base with your own podcast? Then let us introduce you to our partners at the AV department in Portland, Oregon. In addition to delivering exceptional live event audiovisual production and videography, they also have a top-tier production studio and an expert team ready to take your content ideas to the next level. Contact the AV department to schedule a consultation and start bringing your podcast vision to life.